Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and I'm joined by regular co-host Mr.
Andy Conduit Tenor. Hello, Ben, and indeed everybody. How you all doing?
Hello, everybody. Don't feel left out. We're saying hello to you as well because we're kind like that.
Yeah, it's your
How's it
parasocial
going?
interaction for the week, everybody. Welcome back.
When I started saying my name is Ben Errington, then I'm just feeling a little bit bunged up, just a little bit under the weather. Maybe just because of the cold. Who knows? I felt like I was going to say my name is Michael Caine.
Ben Errington. They're just going to like a big traditional, like in a book when they're writing, someone has got a bunged up nose.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. I love it when people write like, out phonetically. You know, they got a bunged up nose. Yeah, listen to this. This is the state of this. But I'm not Michael Caine of Jules 3? Jules 3? Jules 4? Jules 4.
Jaws of Revenge, yeah.
Jules the Revenge, yeah. I remember reading a quote about that where somebody said Jules the Revenge is rubbish, and he was like, I've never seen it, but I've seen my mum's house that I bought with the money.
Paid for mum's
I got
house.
paid,
So
paid for my mum's house. And that's lovely. And I respect that. I mean, I respect Michael Caine anyway, but I respect him even more so for that wonderful cut down of I guess, a journalist. Bit rude, isn't it, if you're a journalist and the first thing you say is, this film you're in, shit.
yeah. But I probably read loads of shit issues of your newspaper, mate. Look at that.
Yeah,
Front line of
exactly.
this one, loads of people died. What's that about? Shit starting it.
It's a shit start. You don't do that. You hook everyone's hooked then. Michael Caine movie, right? Talking to Michael Caine, bit of a random way to start the podcast. Ever heard of a movie called The Hand, a 1981 film about a killer disembodied hand, basically like idle hands, but an
Cool.
80s movie starring Michael Caine. Not only that, he plays a character called John Lansdale, who's a comic book illustrator, and his hand gets lopped off, or I think it's like some sort of car accident actually. And the hand like takes on a life of its own, evil killer hand, like what's his flavor from Adam's Family?
Like The Thing or an Evil Dead. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
The Thing or an Evil Dead or an idle hand.
you'll be pleased to know, Ben, that in just that quick discussion, I've added it to my letterbox. I'll get straight to it.
Sounds great, doesn't it? And directed by Oliver Stone as well, the man who did loads of stuff, who directed loads of stuff. But like, not necessarily horror films, but like I think he's done the Doors movie, the JFK film, Nixon, loads of films about presidents. Oh, of course, Natural Born Killers as well. Add it to the list. Basically, I found out about that film from the In Search of Darkness documentary, which I will bring up in what we've been watching, because since I've watched that, my watch list has been growing and exponentially. It's seriously bloated right now. But you know, if I'd been chipping away at my watch list like you have recent weeks, I'd feel like all my hard work was for nothing.
I'm going to get
Fruitless.
mine undone shortly. I've not watched any of the In Search of Darknesses yet because you're the champion of a horror or otherwise documentary. But I am going to catch up on that whole three because some of them are intimidatingly long. I think I might just maybe
intimidatingly long, but
maybe do like an hour at a time.
Hour at a time. Well, it breaks it down by year. So as soon as it goes, listen. Now we're talking about no. Listen. Now we're talking about episode. Now we're talking about 1983. You can go.
Next,
I'm going to stop it there. It's cool, and it's kind of broken up as well, but with some sort of
musical
other chats,
interludes,
other general chats, or certain actors talking about their career rather than specific years of films. It's great. But yeah, of course I'm going to get into it. So horror news. Fancy a bit of that, Andy?
Yes,
Sorry,
please.
I feel like I've just been throwing rabbiting loads of stuff at you, but I trust you're well.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And it's always good to hear good relevant stuff. So pile in. What we got on the news this week?
It's always good relevant stuff. I've got a few pieces of news, and I've got a very interesting factoid, which I'd like to bring up. I'll save the factoid for the end of this news section. Remind me before I forget. So, news this week: Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. are returning for a new "I Know What You Did Last Summer" sequel. So, in the wake of Amazon's short-lived television series, I didn't watch it. Sorry, maybe that's why it was short-lived. In the wake of that, we have now got a sequel, like a legacy sequel with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt returning. That's pretty much all we know about it. it will be taking the trendy legacy sequel approach, returning characters likely in the mix alongside some fresh faces. And then it just says, stay tuned for more as we hear it. So what was the last? Obviously, there was a series, and there was the last film was a bit of a.
Was it I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer?
I'll always know what you did last summer. What could
Was
this
that
one
what
be
it's
called?
called, or is that made up? I know all
Yeah,
things are
that
made
sounds
up,
about
but
right. That sounds about right. What could the new one be called?
I don't know if they've already done Always.
I remember, comma.
I
I know what you
remember what you
did.
did last summer.
I
I've
remember what you
forgotten for
did.
a bit, but
Remember,
I've just
remember.
recalled what you did last
Yeah.
summer.
I've just had a
Or
thought, right? I
yeah,
know what you
I
did last summer,
don't
20 years
believe
ago.
that. Don't believe that escaped my mind. Or yeah,
Mm.
like I'll always know what you
I
did
mean,
last summer. Again, if destroyed, still true.
nowhere near is up for that and as interested as this one. As I was like Scream when it announced the Legacy sequel. As you said before the show as well, is that little kid directing it. If you
One
listen
that did
to our,
one
I know,
scene of the original.
if you listen to our, I know what you did last summer scene, the most memorable scene of that movie where she shouts at the sky in anger was directed by a kid who won a competition. Now, if you listen to our previous episode, you'll remember that. However, it's always worth bringing up again because it is mad. Imagine finding out that, like, I don't know, one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history. I don't know, the end of Citizen Kane, for example. Oh yeah, that's amazing. That is. Oh yeah, I love that scene. Actually, it was directed by a little fella who who won a competition for the day. He's only 4 years old. He didn't really know anything about films or anything, but he
Was the
directed that scene.
competition was the competition like send in an idea for a scene, or was the competition like send in box lids off
Yeah.
Frosties and £3.99 and you'll get it.
Oh yeah. It could have been either of those. Yeah, I'm assuming that they already had a scene written, and maybe the director was like, "This scene, I'm not in. This scene's a bit naff. Let's get a little kid in to direct it. Have the time of his life.
Don't help him at all. Because when
Don't
the
help
little
him.
kid had come in and gone, I think we should be pointing all the cameras at the floor here.
They'll go, yeah, skin him or ink the shit out of this. Come on,
Yeah. and
point
that,
out
and
the
that
floor.
years later, an experimental film genre was born.
Exactly. I hope we haven't ruffled any feathers with our skin and ink.
Yeah, I think we were respectful of the filmmaking. I think it was fun.
Yeah,
And I've had a few conversations about people with it from spoilers if you haven't listened to last week. Skin and Marink is one that we found hard to rate because it's very different an experience from a piece of art point of view and a piece of entertainment point of view. But I
yeah,
discussed it with a few people in the last week as well, and I think it's had polarized opinions now that it's out in the mainstream marketplace. And from the downright angry reactions I've seen from some people, I think it's less of a victim of its own filmmaking. And the people who are reacting very most negatively about it seem to be responding to the really overblown social media responses that are making it a challenge and a watch that because it isn't that kind of film. I think it's become a
yeah.
victim of marketing that it didn't come up with itself, marketing that people have thrust upon it with their social media takes. And
Mm.
it's an interesting piece of cinema, but it's not what people are portraying it as on
Yeah.
in their
I
challenge
think
watches.
a good thing to mention is that when you posted your rating, you did accompany it with a written letterbox review, which I think went into it a little bit more. Most of the time on Letterboxd, if we've covered it on the show, I tend to just put, "Hey, here's the link to the podcast." But sometimes adding a little bit of context is good, especially if you've given it just a couple of stars, which unfortunately I did with Skinnamarink. Cinema Drink.
I think I gave it a 3, combining what I thought of it as a movie and what I thought of it as a
Mm.
like showpiece of technique, and then averaged it out as a 3,
Yeah,
which is
that
good.
sounds fair.
A lot of my favorite movies are 2-star movies. Let's put it out there.
Yeah, free is the sweet spot, isn't it? Okay, what other piece of news have we got? Terrifier 2 director Damien Leone teases an upcoming horror movie with Sam Raimi's Ghost House Pictures. It's obviously fresh off of last year's box office success of Terrifier 2, which I know I mentioned it last week, Andy. I feel silly to mention it again. I feel like God, he's going on about it. When I went to Denmark, they were showing it in the cinema in Denmark, and I was kind of like, that's cool.
Yeah. What kind of little
I think
kiddies
that,
could go into now? There's probably still age ratings, but you know.
yeah, I just thought that was cool, to think of like what the kind of budget it had, and it didn't get much of a cinema release in the UK, did it?
No. What does these days? I struggle to go and see
Well, no.
this week's film.
Um, so yeah, he's really hoping it could happen before Terrifier 3, or it might happen right after. We'll see. And then everyone says, back up a second, Terrifier 3? What, he's gone and confirmed that, has he? And he says he's writing Terrifier 3 as we speak. But yeah, the project of Ghost House, no official announcement has been made, but apparently it is on the slate. So yeah, it seems like Sam Raimi, it's good that he's teaming up with modern horror filmmakers as well, and lending his name to other things, obviously. He's done a hell of a lot of that over the last few years. That's pretty exciting.
Good to see as well. And the team that came up with Terrifier, I think we've talked about this as well. You know, while it struggles to break the films that I would watch very regularly, nothing but immense respect for what they've done with that movie and the great iconography they put together with the Art the Clown character and some of the commitment to physical effects that they're doing in there as well. So I cannot wait to see what they'll do with not having to do the hustle of raising so much money and actually having some backing and some studio money behind them. I think it'd be great.
100%. Very exciting. Another movie announcement is bloody Stephen King adaptation, isn't it, Andy?
Another
Billy
one.
Summers, the film that only came out like last year. Billy Summers, J.J. Abrams, and Leonardo DiCaprio are producing the film adaptation of the Stephen King novel, for Bad Robot, apparently. So Billy, I kind of thought it was more of a sort of thriller crime one. So I think Billy Summers is a hitman looking to retire, takes one last lucrative job to feather his nest. I love that turn of phrase. I guess this is horror news because of Stephen King. Anything Stephen King sets his mind to, it seems, gets adapted. I reckon he's written like a shopping list somewhere, and someone's adapting that into a film.
Yeah, why not?
Bread, milk, light bulbs.
What if they're not out? What if they've not got the milk you want? What if you want red top, but they've only got green? Do you make that compromise?
Exactly.
Or do you
What
go
do you
try the
do
next place?
Oh no, you want to get it all done in one place. What do you do if you see a shopping list in a basket? Do you give it a little read?
Yeah, have a little peruse.
Yeah,
You never know. It might not be a shopping list. Might be like big plans, might foil a robbery or something.
Big plans could be a list of people someone wants to kill.
Like a kill list, like the film.
And on the back it says Andy Conduit Turner, and then it says turn around, and you turn around, bang, got you.
Wouldn't turn around, duck.
Duck, roll, dive at the shop.
Push the trolley towards them, take them out.
Yeah. So this could be interesting. I'm not sure what Leonardo DiCaprio's deal would be. What's your deal, Leonardo DiCaprio? Well, if you look at the news, Leonardo DiCaprio's deal is going out with young ladies like 30 years his
That's why he's getting on this thing as soon as it comes out. Isn't just people who he dates, Ben. Can't deal with something that's too old. He has to come a second that book's released. He's like, better adapt it.
He's
Gotta
gone.
do it when it's
Do you
hot and fresh.
Do you fancy adapting the Stephen King novel from the 80s? He's gone. Well, you what?
Almost 40 years old. No thanks.
Apparently, his new girlfriend wasn't even born when Titanic came out.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm laughing, but yeah, it's problematic. Okay, and a last piece of news, which I thought was pretty damn interesting, is that Vinegar Syndrome Publishing is a new label which will release comics and novelizations of cult films. So it's literally just been announced this week, just a couple of days ago. Vinegar Syndrome thrilled to announce that with the launch of Vinegar Syndrome Publishing, along with the acquisition of legendary horror comic publisher Ibon Press, they will specialize in original comics as well as adaptations and novelizations of some of your favorite films in the Vinegar Syndrome catalog. So if collectors of Vinegar Syndrome movies, there's a lot of Lucio Fulci stuff in there, as well as pretty much loads of different genre and world cinema as well. this could be exciting. You know, if you've
That
ever
sounds
wanted
great
to read,
news.
yeah, it does apparently. So it's gonna to kick it off this spring with a 4-part comic adaptation of Lucio Fulci's Zombie. That's the one where Zombie ends up in a tussle with a shark, right?
Think so. Walking along the bottom of the sea. I haven't seen Tom. It's on Shudder right now, right? So I might catch up on it.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, that could be exciting. I for one love a good novelization. Well, this is the thing, right? I think novelizations that come out with a modern movie, I probably would steer clear of. Like I know there was a Halloween Ends one, which apparently um elaborated on some of the stuff a little bit, expanded on some of the stuff. Sorry, but I feel like a novelization of a film that's like released years and years ago. Like, I mean, I've picked up Fright Night Origins, which of course isn't a novelization of a Fright Night movie, but it is tied directly to those movies. I don't know. I kind of feel like that's pretty exciting because it feels like a novelization that comes out with a movie as it's released is kind of like rushed, and it's kind of like, okay, let's get it on the shelf
Mhm.
alongside the film so people can read about it. But something like that, I feel, God, I wonder why they've chosen that. Like I've always feel like the writer must have something that they want to say.
Some connection they've got with it, and there's some good comic adaptations. There is a comic of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari with the Somnambulist.
Oh wow,
There is a comic. I think it's a prequel of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
yeah.
There's a Pumpkinhead
Oh,
comic,
that sounds exciting.
all available now on. Well, they certainly were available on Comixology. I'm sure other comics platforms that actually function properly are also available. Um,
Mm,
yeah, they're all out there. So good on you, Vinegar Syndrome. I mean,
yeah.
dabbled a bit of work in horror comics myself. If you want any work for hire, you know my number.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Get in touch. Andy Conduit Turner. Pen for pen for rent.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
I'd say I use a
That
computer, but yeah,
yeah. Use a
still stuff.
computer. It's the fault that counts. Um, that's pretty much all I've got for horror news. But what was my little tidbit?
Oh yeah,
Because it
what was your factoid as it was
it's
described?
not it's not tidbit, is it? It's tidbid. Tidbit. What was
Tidbit,
it? Tid
tidbit.
tid tidbit. I always
I
get
don't
that
know the
wrong.
etymology, but that's what it is.
Confuses me. If you're a fan of X Files, are you a fan of X Files? You like a bit of X
Yeah.
Files, don't you? So apparently this, I don't know when this year, but this year would have been when Eugene Toombs would come out of hibernation after 30 years if he hadn't been taken down by Mulder and Scully. There's a part in the show, in the latest, in one of obviously the latter of the two episodes that Adrian Toombs is in. Eugene Toombs, Adrian Toombs is Vulture. Eugene Toombs in, and they say, "Oh, if he went into hibernation now in his nest made out of ripped up bits of newspaper and bile, when would he emerge?" And they do a quick bit of maths, and they go 2023. So,
Yeah.
luckily for us,
Glad he
it's
got
not going
got
to
by the
happen.
escalator.
He got squished by the escalator, exactly. Oh, you got squished by an escalator, did you? A man who, by his very nature, is able to squeeze into tight spaces.
As a space too tight, no one could squeeze into that.
No one could
Made the
squeeze into
made the
it.
mistake of not holding onto the handrail properly, like it tells you in the safety
Yeah.
things.
Exactly.
Idiot.
So thank you, Mulder and Scully, for making the world a safer place. Because he would have come out, and I do quite like. Obviously, who else have we got? A Pennywise who goes away for a bit and comes back every 27 years, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a few.
I
There's a
like
few
that.
like that. Old. Well, I'll mention him in a little bit. Spoilers. Old Jeepers Creepers will come back every 20 odd
Oh
years, doesn't
yeah,
he?
what's his name?
The Creeper, I think.
Oh, he's just the creeper
The Creeperman.
beating you, the creeper man. Okay, so that's it. Whether you enjoyed that or not, Andy, I don't know, but
I did.
I
I did enjoy it.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Hopefully, X Files fans will get a kick out of that. So now, what we've been watching for the week. Anything that you would like to
I
mention?
mean,
Have you got an extensive list?
you touched upon it already, Ben. So you go first and tell us about In Search of Darkness Part 3 et al. What
Oh
you've been
yeah.
catching up on.
So, In Search of Darkness Part 3 is now available on Shudder. I've definitely mentioned parts 1 and 2 on here because I watched them last year. So yeah, 5.5 hours of an extensive deep dive into 80s horror and genre cinema, mostly horror, but it goes in some interesting directions, featuring actors, filmmakers, YouTubers, musicians. You've got Chris Jericho pops his head out in there a few times. Jed Shepherd, friend of the show. I'm going to call him a friend of the show. If you're a guest on the show, you're a friend of the
You're
show.
automatically a friend unless you literally leave as an enemy and say never darken my doorstep again.
Which only happens occasionally.
If you don't say that, then you're in. You're a friend of the show.
Basically, I had my notes app open and I was adding so many films to the watch list. As I said, this feels like more of a deep dive. Part 1 and part 2 are, they cover a lot of the
casual
big hitters,
glances.
Casual glances, and also stuff that like you might be familiar with, maybe you've not seen. This is much more of a deep dive where I'm like, God, I've never heard of that. Or I've heard of that. I've seen that poster. I've seen a clip. I've seen, a screenshot. And now I know what it is. So I've added so many films, not just to my watch list, but also in my head thinking, you know what? We should cover pretty much all of those on this show. I think I'm pretty sure that the 80s is the decade that we've covered the most films from, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, certainly last time I ran the numbers, it's either that or maybe 2010s because we did a lot of new stuff. But
yeah.
80s, I think, is probably still ahead.
I reckon, especially with the last year of the podcast, we've done that. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you're a fan of making new discoveries, I guess, in the genre, and also finding out the stories about these films and how they came to pass, and like how people watched these films years ago. When I went to these streaming services, when it was just a discovery on a video store shelf. It's really cool. Yeah, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a good time. And it's one of those, even though it's 5.5 hours long, it never feels like a slog because I almost kind of feel like I kind of want it to just last forever,
Yeah. And it's like having a podcast, as sometimes long. You know what? Take a break. You're going to do all this in one sitting.
Don't have to. You definitely don't have to. What I've only really watched a couple of other things, Andy.
Go on, what you got on?
I guess I might as well just mention these before if you've got more than me.
Yeah,
so I watched Neil Marshall's The Lair, which is also on Shudder.
It's on Shudder now. I saw it a couple of weeks back now. I didn't know that the Shudder date that was on, so I just cracked and got it on VOD, which was
yeah. So you've seen it too?
Which is fine. Yeah, I've seen it.
So we've already discussed it then.
I think we might have touched on it super briefly, but you've seen it now. What was your opinion? What did you think?
I mean, I've got all the respect in the world for Neil Marshall because Dog Soldiers is up there with one of my favorite films. I absolutely love The Descent. Do you know what? I like Neil Marshall's Hellboy as well. I thought that was totally, I want to say more than fine. It got a lot of hate. I think it was fine.
I think the biggest challenge for Neil Marshall's Hellboy is that it simply wasn't the one that some people were expecting, and he had an uphill struggle in the fact that people wanted conclusions of the previous one, which never got made. So I think it wasn't what it was that people had problems with. It's that people wanted something that they were never going to get.
Yeah,
but I think what he delivered was very good. I've seen his Hellboy.
Yeah, David Harbour is a great character, is a great Hellboy as well. I think The Lair is, I can't remember. We'll touch on what you said. It didn't feel like it was made by Neil Marshall. It felt pretty cheap. It felt like the script. I don't know. Sometimes you read you hear the dialogue in a movie. You're like, someone American has written British characters, but Neil Marshall's not American. So
yeah.
How are these characters like? They say so many Britishisms in one sentence. I think a cup of tea gets mentioned about 15 times, and I'm like, all right, we get it. They're British. Yeah. I'm not going to lay into it too much because, as I said, it's a filmmaker that I appreciate, and when a dud comes out, I kind of just want to almost look the other way. But the creatures look like a groom on a stag do dressed up in a knockoff Venom costume bought on eBay for a $5.
They do with a dose of liquor from Resident Evil and a big leggy Venom energy from A Quiet Place. They run out and give you a thumping.
Yeah, and a bit like the molded in Resident Evil 7.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'm with you, Ben. Like, same as you, great respect for Neil Marshall as a filmmaker, and he's made some fantastic films that have stood the test of time. It may be I'd love to get any American listeners' opinion on this. I think that a lot of Neil Marshall's other films might have been so resonant with us and so beloved and have that real test of time thing, like The
Yeah.
Descent and like Dog Soldiers as well, because especially for the time it came out, Dog Soldiers is very attuned to the zeitgeist we had here. Says using a German word for British culture. That is as
But
British as you get. But like,
like
whereas this one, the strike of the, yeah, you're right. Culturally, it feels a lot more American. I think it misses some of the more organic touch points that the old one has. The lead is fantastic, though. She's great.
I just do you not also feel like that like the dialogue in Dog Soldiers is just amazing, like the camaraderie between the characters and that. And I just felt like it was completely absent in this. And I didn't really know what was happening or who I was supposed to root for, or yeah, it
People
was
what aren't monsters.
yeah, but still, just a weird one. And I've not actually seen his previous release, which I think is The Reckoning.
I've
But
not
yeah,
seen The
we'll
Reckoning either.
no. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say about that. I've not actually seen anything else this week, but I have been playing a lot of Power Wash Simulator on the
I saw.
PS5. So I was like, because of the stress of Dead Space, it's a nice antidote to that, where I can just go and like power wash a skate park for like 2 hours. And
Or
it is
Lara
really.
Croft's Mansion.
Oh yeah, I've done Lara Croft's Mansion. Yeah, honestly, I think it took about 6 hours in total.
Oh, I might have to pick that up. Looks very fun. When I
Oh yeah,
say
it's
fun,
fun.
looks like a chore that I'd hate to do in real life, but in a game,
I don't know. I don't. You know what? I think I was kind of thought that, but now I'm kind of thinking I'd love to do it in real life. And now when I'm just walking around, everywhere I see that's slightly a bit grubby, I'm like, you need to get the red nozzle on that.
oh, you'd want to do it as a job. They don't want to just do it in your own house. In this
Oh
economy,
no.
watching that
Oh yeah.
electric meter tick up, my
Oh
goodness.
yeah, God. You want someone to and the water bill? Don't remember that?
I live in Scotland.
Uh
It's part of our council tax.
oh, bloody hell. That's lovely. I want to move up. That's it pretty much for what I've watched. Anything you wanted to mention?
All right, let's rattle through a little list for you here. I got some recommendations for you, Ben, for your list. Get your notes app out.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. This week's rundown, I began with 1996's Trilogy of Terror 2. It
Oh.
follows the same example from the original Trilogy of Terror, where we have one lead heroine who's in all three of
Oh,
the
nice.
anthology stories as
Mm.
just a different character each time. It's just the same actor. And this time it's Lysette Anthony, who you may recognize, I mean, primarily from Dracula Dead and Loving It. But she's in all sorts of other movies over the past as well. Look Who's Talking Now, Krull, Switch, Jack the Ripper.
Krull.
But
Okay.
she is, I feel like she might have more television quotes as well. She's definitely a very recognizable face. And the beginning story is one we'll have seen more recently in Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. You know, the graveyard rats.
Oh,
There is
okay.
a version of that story, but in a very modern sense in this one, rather than the period piece that we see in this newer version. You know what? It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the first one, which ran on the same principle of a lead actor being in three different stories in different roles.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
But it's a really, really cool anthology. I think we've mentioned it before. It's the one that has the little fetish doll that chases that person around, and you've seen it on the
Yeah, yeah,
skateboard
yeah.
as a filmmaking technique. It's really good. It's a good, fun little anthology series. It's really rocketed up my list of favorite anthologies. So that's a good one. Recommending that.
Awesome.
Um, I saw 2022's Jeepers Creepers Reborn, the reboot to the Ailing franchise, which, I mean, Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, both all timers for me. Really liked both of them. But then the third one kind of ate it a little bit, I guess. It didn't really.
Is the second one like the school bus full of
The school bus full of people, right? And at the end,
yeah, yeah,
the farmer teams up with them and they basically get rid of it.
yeah.
I really liked the second one. It's a really surprising sequel. So in this in this remake, it frames it up nicely where perhaps there is a legend, there's an urban legend of it as well, and like it's a thing that is a horror icon already. I think there's even a little passing comment like, "Oh, didn't they make a film about the creepy?" Oh, yeah, they made 3. I'm not sure if it's meant to be formally putting the previous films in a fictional universe in this film's universe, or whether it's just a throwaway line. But basically, the time has passed, and it begins with the creeper re-emerging.
I'm assuming
there's also some cult stuff going on.
Sorry, Andy, didn't mean to jump in. I'm assuming it's not directed by the dude who obviously got
no,
he was wrong. He was a wrong, wasn't he?
It wasn't that one. It is the director of Iron Sky, which is one of my several Iron Sky movies.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the first one of some of the ones. So it is primarily the director's name is Timo. Apologies, Timo, if I butcher your last name here. Vurunsola.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. Yeah. I think, is that the guy I'm thinking of? The guy who's directing the new oh no, it's the Finnish dude I'm thinking of. There's another Timo who's directing the remake of Train to Busan.
No, not that one. I don't believe it isn't listed on his credits yet. But yeah, directed this Jeepers Creepers Reborn. I think maybe the character and the franchise has had its heyday. It's certainly a big improvement over the third one. It doesn't quite reach the heights of the original two for me. It doesn't quite have that same magic, but it's an interesting rebirth. And pick up a franchise movie, see how things are going. Then I watched 1985's House, horror comedy. Lots of on Shudder now.
That's one on my list as well.
Yeah, Steve Milner. I've seen this one before. I went and had a little revisit of this one. About a writer's trauma about his time in the Vietnam War, but presented in a very Evil Dead comedy slapstick way at times.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to. Sometimes it is like like an Animal House, kind of movie. And other times it's got that slapstick horror in there. I enjoyed it. And I seem to remember really enjoying the second one as well. I decided I'm going to go back on this series while it's all on Shudder. So I went in and enjoyed that. Probably my biggest recommendation of the week might have escaped and fallen under your radar on Shudder because it's actually listed under series rather than movies if you're browsing, because it's 3 short parts. In total, about 50 minutes overall. But it's called Blood Machines. It came out in 2019. It is directed by Rafael Hernandez and Savitri Jolie Gonfard. It's a cosmic opera, they describe it, and here's your synopsis. An artificial intelligence escapes a spaceship to turn into a female ghost to challenge 2 Blade Runners to a galactic chase. My description of it in my review I wrote up there was, if you got a Cronenberg to direct Firefly, it is like Heavy Metal, the animation, but made into actual film. It is super stylized. It is beautiful to look at, but also horrifying. It's space, but it's also supernatural. It's really good. I loved it.
Wow. Okay. That sounds...
What was that animation we watched sort of about a year ago now that was really stylized and had
the
energy as well.
The rotoscoped fit.
Yes.
One. Oh God, what was that called? I can picture. I can even picture the font of the.
Something about spines.
Spine of Night.
Spine of Night. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like the Spine of Night, but again, the Spine of Night are a heavy metal, but dragged into actual live action. Brilliant. Loved it. Probably biggest recommendation of the week. Blood Machines on Shudder. Again, the value of that subscription up and up every week. That's great. And then also, Ben, amazing. To wrap up, I believe you've seen both of these. I've done a duology of Killer Clothes movies. I watched In Fabric, which really good movie. I've not seen it before. It's before I was joining you every week, so I think you've done an episode in Fabric way back when.
Yeah, Yep, we did.
So yeah, I hadn't seen it before, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Tempered that with maybe that some of the people in that movie are the hardest done by people in the world that just deserve a break. They didn't really deserve a haunted dress to get them.
No.
But they do. But it does. That was that, and then I watched 2020's Slacks with two X's, which I believe you've seen. I've got about 15 minutes of that to finish actually, but
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
seen
think it's going to make
Slacks.
any big, huge left turns at the last minute. It's just a
No.
fun movie where the jeans are killers.
If you could come up against either one of those killer clove items in a charity shop, for example, which one would you least like to take on?
Um, I think I'd least like to get the in fabric dress because it feels like that's more ethereal and haunted. I feel like the slacks I could just go to
Yeah.
another place
Yeah,
and
the
not be
jeans
near
would,
them.
but the dress would find you wherever you go.
The dress would make me crash my car or something.
Yeah, that's true. Don't want to do that.
But
Um,
Gwendolyn Christie would just be in your house all the time, outstaying her welcome, and then that dress is up amongst it again, even though you took it to the charity shop.
yeah, exactly. Both good films in their own right, I think. One is, yeah, played for laughs, I guess, a bit. And the other one, not so much.
I mean,
But yeah,
both of them, like In Fabric, has got its comedic moments as well. Like
Mm.
when everyone kind of zones out when the guy is doing his ASMR washing machine repair talk,
Oh
and
yeah,
and also just the fact that Howard Moon
yeah.
is the bank manager.
Oh yeah, of course. Julian Barrett.
Julian Barrett,
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah,
Amazing.
both enjoyable films in their own right. But that, Ben,
Mm.
is what I've been up to this last
That is
week. Apart
that.
from we
Mm.
both have heard what happens when you get a knock at the cabin.
We have. We have indeed. And you know what? Just don't answer. Don't answer the knock at the
Oh,
cabin,
that
I think.
can't get away with it. They knock again. They want to come in.
Yeah, that's true. They're very persistent. And I was going to say they're like Jehovah's Witnesses, but that gets mentioned in the movie. So I'm not being inappropriate because it's played for a laugh. Jehovah's Witnesses or something. Yeah, I think they are. And they might be. So Knock at the Cabin. It's a 2023 American apocalyptic psychological horror film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It's based on the 2018 novel The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. It's the first adaptation of one of his works as well, so that's pretty exciting. Shame that they couldn't have just called it what the book was called, but he was fuming about that. The film stars Dave Bautista, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge, Nikki Amuka-Bird, Kristen Cui, and Abby Quinn and Rupert Grint. God, Grinty turns up, doesn't he? A family of three are vacationing at a remote cabin when they suddenly held hostage by four strangers who demand they sacrifice one of their own to avert the apocalypse. Bloody hell. I absolutely hate it when that happens.
Yeah. I mean, demand, I think, is a strong word. They just ask.
Yeah, they ask very politely, don't they? I was going to say which is nice, but, it's not nice.
You don't want to have to do that. It's a big hassle.
Yeah, it's annoying, though. I feel like any other favor that they came there to ask, I would kind of be open to it, if they asked as politely as they did. However, sacrificing your family of three and you got to sacrifice one of them. That's a pretty intense ask. Ratings for this, we got 6.4 on IMDb, 68% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 63% audience score, 3.2 on Letterboxd. Got some choice reviews for you here, Andy. Mm-hmm. Matt Lynch says, Shyamalan. Oh, I said it like that. Shyamalan shoots the hell out of this. It's suspenseful and spooky. Everyone's good in it. And it's barely 95 minutes. Cinema. 3.5 stars from Matt Lynch. David Elric says, probably would have liked this more if Dave Bautista played the cabin. 2 stars. And I think he could. I think he's got the dimensions pretty much spot on to play the cabin.
Time and time again, proven himself to be a good actor. I bet if he pretended to be a house with the proper prosthetics and makeup, he could do it.
You believe it. And then Amanda the Jedi, whether she's a Jedi or not, I'm not sure. She said, genuinely struggling with the purpose of what I just watched. Like, I get it, but not the way they went about it. 2.5 stars. Now, there's a reason why I've chosen that as a review, because that's kind of how I felt about the book. So I think I don't know. I mentioned that I read the book, or did I? Have I
I'm
mentioned
glad you
before my
did, because
thoughts on the book?
I was hoping to get that dimension from someone else. I haven't read it, so I was hoping to get the comparison.
Like, I think for the most part, it's very, very similar to the film. Like 80% similar to the film. But I just feel like the way it was delivered in the film, I kind of got on board with a bit more than I did the book, because the book, and again, I've read other stuff by Paul Tremblay, and I think he's a great writer. But the book, I just couldn't grasp what I was reading. You know, I couldn't understand what was the purpose of it, what was the interesting, scenario that I was supposed to be, what was the outcome that I was kind of desiring from it. There was nothing, and then I feel like it just kind of petered out, and then I was like, right, okay, right. And again, based on that review, I didn't really get the purpose of it. Like, I get what it's, no, it's not like I get what it's trying to say. I understand what it's saying, but I don't get
Know why it's saying it.
what the subtext is. Why is it saying it? What's it supposed to mean? Why is it interesting? Yeah.
I can't comment on the book. I'll have some thoughts on the film when we get to wrapping up. But I mean, largely Amanda and Ben and anybody. What's the point in anything? Maybe
Yeah,
that's it.
that's a good
Maybe
point.
that's the point. What is the point?
But still, with like a lot of, and I felt like this with Skinamarink as well, didn't I? Like, I need something to really hang my hat on. It's my favorite way of describing anything at the moment, it seems. Whether it's a story of morality or, I need to hang my hat on something. I need to root for somebody. I need to try and at least understand somebody's place in the story or their part in this big, all the moving pieces of a film. I kind of want to understand a certain character's place in it. And Skinamarink, I couldn't do that at all. This film, yeah, I could. I definitely could. I just feel like with the book, that was what I struggled with. I just feel like this film does it a little bit better. And in terms of M. Night Shyamalan's recent films, I would say this is better than Old. You saw Old, didn't you?
I've not seen Old, I was away that week when you guys covered it, The Beach, What Makes You Get Old. And
The Beach, What
I'm
Makes You
aware
Get
of what
Bloody Old.
happens. I've heard enough spoilers, but I haven't seen the movie yet. I'll pick it up on Sunday. It'll turn up on a streaming service at some point that I'm going to buy separately, and I'll watch it then.
I think this is a return to, I don't want to say a return to form, because we all know what M. Night Shyamalan is about, don't we? And
I think M. Night gets a tough deal nowadays, because I think the expectations of he has a very distinct style and a very distinct both visual and the films he chooses kind of language. And I think he is still being compared to his first few movies that were surprising before people knew who he was and what he was capable of. And now, forever chased by people looking for those same highs, probably taking his first light hit where he maybe fell short of some of those expectations. For some with The Village, but other people liked it a lot. More so with Lady in the Water, and then massively when he took on a piece of franchise work and did the, I would say, unassailable task of adapting like a beloved manga into a, not manga, like an anime series into a
Last Airbender.
into a one movie in The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
And then since that, I feel like the popular thing is to have unrealistic expectations or to be going into one of his movies with an idea of knocking it. I know our views on The Visit differ. I love it. I think it's delightfully cheesy. I think it's great. But like his last movie as well, I haven't seen Old, and I know that was divisive. And I think with this one as well, like, I almost pause and say, what do you want from him? I think it's a really well-made movie. I think you get some incredible performances out of it. And I think the issues that you might have with the grasp of the story and the point behind it, it's as much, if not more, to do with the source material than it is anything he does with that movie.
I feel like the source material is just a bit vague. It feels like it's like intentionally vague, and in that way it's frustrating because I want to know more, and it almost feels like as a concept it's not fleshed out enough for there to be a genuine story with fret and with, I mean, sure, there's fret, but it's not flesh. It feels like the characters are not telling us everything because, but it doesn't feel like because the characters have a secret and we're gonna find it out. It feels like it's because the story, like the source material and the script, for example, doesn't know. It feels like I'm getting it feels like Lost all over again, where it's like there's a mystery there's an
We have to
underlying
keep the mystery
mystery.
going.
We have to keep the mystery going, and we're going to tell you what the mystery is at the end. But by the time you get to the end, actually, in fact, it's not really anything that's particularly interesting. So we're not even really going to go into it. Kind of feels like that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. My relationship with the book, I think, probably tarnishes my relationship with the film a tad. But I think there's a lot to like. I think it's shot incredibly well. There are a lot of really good performances from pretty much everybody involved. Um, I think the cinematography is great. I think the soundtrack was really good. I thought, and yeah, I think I preferred it in many ways, to the book. With M. Night Shyamalan, I think I agree with him getting a bad rap because when we were going to watch the film, Charlie said to me, "Oh, I wonder what the twist is going to be," and I was almost like, I don't know if M. Night is all about the twist anymore. He's done a few twists, sure, but if you broke down his whole filmography, the amount of films that have a genuine twist is probably like 3 or maybe 4, and a lot of them sit in the first sort of 5 or 6 films he released. I guess The Visit had a twist, but after that, I'm almost like, I'm definitely past expecting there to be any sort of twist, especially when this is based on a book. So you kind of think, can he twist up the source material to that much? He can't really, can he? That'd be cheeky.
Yeah, you wouldn't like, and I think this, from everything you're saying, is a fairly close adaptation, apart from the in adapting any piece of literature, which is going to run for a hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
What, it probably makes sense before we go into the movie. Spoilers for a new movie, everyone. By the way, if you haven't seen it and you care about spoilers and you're going to go and see it, give it a pause here until you've been to see it, or until you've realised that you don't care. And then we'll go through it plot wise. Thematically, for me, and again, I'm more confident in this than I was in the meanings behind Skinamarink, even though we took our best shot at them. I'm not a literature or a film critic of any note, and I don't have the actual film school theory behind it. For me, it again looks at where we are today. I guess the greater focus on the individual and that central family unit that you have, and particularly in the main characters we have with Eric and Andrew, are people who are potentially outsiders to certain elements of society, and that they're a same-sex couple who have adopted a kid and protect themselves in that insular family unit as well as they can, having that responsibility placed on them. And this doesn't get into the spoilers yet, because of course this is pretty well laid out in the trailers. Even they are given a responsibility to make a sacrifice in a world where religion and old folklore and so on that would have dictated a lot of people's lives in the past has fallen away, because now we have a scientific society and those aren't huge playing factors anymore. And in a world where we're increasingly focused on the people close to us and the individual, to being asked to make a sacrifice that will damage, if not destroy, your own life, but for the benefit of a lot of people that you do not know, will never know, and in some cases you maybe are actively disincentivized to support and help, because they are people who have rejected you, are afraid of you, are directly unpleasant to you, whether in a violent and criminal sense or just dismissive of you. It would be a huge ask. And I think it's an interesting character study to look at how that goes through, to ask someone to take faith that this is a real thing in a world where faith is of less importance to people's lives, and then make this sacrifice for a wider society that maybe you're not really inclined to care that much about.
I
So
think
for me, that was the theme, and that's why I walked out the cinema. Spoilers now, incredibly sad.
Oh
But
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
that was my
almost
takeaway
like
anyway.
yeah. I think I agree with that, and I think yeah, a lot of that makes sense. I think this film dealt with maybe slightly better than the book for me, but then again, I think I was reading the book about halfway through. I was getting a bit frustrated, so maybe a lot of that subtext kind of fell away for me. Whereas in the book, I felt like it was delivered a lot better, especially in terms of like flashbacks we had. So we understand about this couple and the difficulties that they faced in terms of violent acts against them, and the fact that they both look at the world in such different ways. Um, two gay men who are obviously in a same sex relationship, and they've adopted a girl, a girl of a different race as well. That's obviously something that would again be something to discuss. And obviously they look at the world in two different ways. One's kind of like not supported by his parents, sort of looks at the world through a place of as I don't want to say as a victim. That's probably not correct. But somebody who does get the shitty end of the stick a lot of the times in terms for being a gay man in this obviously a victim of violence as well. Whereas the other guy clearly has a supportive network of parents, looks at the world a bit more hopefully, I guess, or kind of like, the world doesn't accept us. However, I'm hopeful that people can get better or understand. Whereas the other guy maybe is a bit more frustrated with the world and hates the world and hates everyone in it. In a way, maybe he doesn't say that, but when he's pushed to the brink, he does.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that sort of dynamic, but the fact that they share this unwavering love for somebody who they've adopted as well, which is amazing. And then to see how they deal with these like intruders in their lives, where one of them deals with like in a way they are here to commit acts of hate upon us, because of our sexuality, because of the lives we've chosen to lead, and the other one who's maybe a bit more like, I don't think is as simple as that. It was interesting to see those sort of sides of the coin, I guess.
There's some interesting bits, and this creates probably a nice, and you can see why they wanted to approach, or why M. Night himself would have an interest in this film. Huge parallels with, for me, perhaps one of his strongest films. We've covered it reasonably recently, The Signs.
Oh yes, the old sins.
The Signs is about a man who was a man of faith who no longer has that faith, and the things they're seeing basically having two possibilities. They are read the signs that everything is connected and there is a preordained plan for things, or it is just a bunch of things that happen. And we see the characters in this film go through a lot of that same experience. They're being asked to do something with the understanding that if they don't do it, something terrible is going to happen. And then they are, rather than, they're being then challenged with these things to say, oh look, do you believe this yet? Do you believe this happening? And they are consistently, the film goes, rallying against what that could be, and they're rationalizing those things. So a lot like we see in those characters, except it's not space aliens this time, everybody. It's something different.
It's not space aliens who, I don't want to spoil signs, sorry. Yeah, and I think we mentioned before a little bit about the dialogue in M. Night Shyamalan's films has a really weird flavor to it, but I'm so used to it now that it doesn't feel bad anymore. I don't think it just feels thoughtful. I guess it's kind of like thoughtful, and people are talking in ways that gets to the point, but doesn't. It almost feels like robotic, but not. It's really weird to explain. It's robotic, but I understand the emotion. I feel like it cuts out all of the fat of like something, and just is a really direct way of. I think I may have mentioned it before. It reminds me of Robert Kirkman writes The Walking Dead. Is that like people don't talk like that? Nobody actually talks like that. These aren't actual human beings speaking. However, it still makes sense. It still works. And does that make sense? I mean, that's how it affects me.
The way I would put it, and I think this film
probably put it better,
no, not at all. I'm not like M. Night Shyamalan. I'm not going to cut this straight to the fat. Maybe I'm like their characters in that I probably have a slightly unusual way of talking the words I tend to choose. But for me, when I watch this film, more so actually than any other of his books, not books, one other of his movies, but it's true perhaps across the board, is that his movies watch a lot like you might see in a play. And I
Yeah.
think
I think we've
I,
said that before, haven't
you
we? Have
could
we said that before?
probably did. You could probably, when we did the signs, actually, I
Mm.
think you could knock on the cabin in particular, you could translate this to a stage, it would work incredibly well, in
Oh
my
yeah,
opinion.
100%.
Really
It's
good
almost
character pieces. The way that each character has, the way they speak is a factor into what their character is. And that's true of, the over the top nature of the boy and, the male and female kids in The Visit. It's true of the performative way that Bruce Willis works in
yeah.
Unbreakable and in The Sixth Sense, and it's
It's al- it's
eminently
almost like it
true of
removes.
characters here as well.
Yeah, sorry, Andy. It's almost like it removes all subtext, and it's almost like people are saying exactly what they feel and think, so that the audience know exactly they're right there with it. And again, yeah, that is a bit like a sort of stage, like theater, because sometimes it does have to be delivered like that because, yeah, you can't usually do things like flashback to flesh out characters, even though this film does. Um, but yeah, the performances. What a performance here is. Bautista's disarming performance, and I guess that's a good way of putting it. But the performance of Kristen Cui as well as Wen in her first role is amazing.
She's
Like
phenomenal.
not.
I think we're probably reaching the critical mass point where not so long ago, right? Like you'd see kids acting in stuff, and maybe there's been a trough because I feel like maybe it's because we were kids at the time, or maybe it was because like you watch like an '80s movie and you don't notice that kids are like child actors. You're really on board and you believe it. And then
Yeah,
it feels like in the '90s and early 2000s we had an absolute dearth of, oh, there's a kid in this, it's going to be insufferable because kids aren't very good at acting. But I think we're beyond this now. I think some of the greatest talent that we see in acting spaces is from
yeah.
increasingly very young people, and this is true.
I think because of kids in horror movies from like from like the late 90s, early 2000s were always supposed to be like the spooky kid who's seen something weird, and um, whereas now I feel like kids are written a lot better. Um,
Yeah,
that's not to say that all kid actors and all kid roles in horror, but I think there are a lot of mainstream roles for spooky kids that were a bit bad. Not necessarily the performance. Sometimes like the role was not the best in terms of their place in that film. Um, so yeah, I think there's kids are just written a lot better and believable these days, I
yeah,
guess, which is this character feels like a real character in a real unique situation, and I feel like the way she reacts and the way she interacts with other characters is good. But then again, the way Wen was written in the book was never something I had a problem with. I always felt like the characters of Wen, the characters of Eric and Andrew were characters that I understood far better than the antagonists. And I
yeah.
probably still feel like that now.
And you know what? Before we go into the plot summary here, um, time to really consider this. Would you say, in the purest sense of the word, we're covering it now, we're not going to change anything. Um, would you say, hand on heart, is this a horror movie?
uh yeah, I suppose that's a good question. I mean, I guess so. I mean, some of the gore is kind of like it does happen, but off screen a bit. I guess the audience looks away, like when looks away. If she looks away, we don't quite see anything. Um, even though there's like a throat slit and some head smashes. I guess it's a horror movie because we don't know the nature of these characters when they invade this cabin. So it's almost like it could be a slasher, could be some sort of home invasion thriller or something like that. But I think it probably is a horror movie in the sense of the word, because apocalypse kind of goes hand in hand. Well, the way the apocalypse plays out in this, I guess, it's not like a disaster movie, but the apocalypse has almost got something supernatural about it, hasn't it, in this one?
And there's a cabin in it as well, so it's very horror centric.
Cabins are synonymous, of course, with horror, of course. Um, yeah, is this the first horror role for Bautista?
Army of the Dead.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I would have liked to have if his Bautista music played when he was walking through the forest towards when.
He's ever so nice in this, though. He wasn't coming in Batista on this little kid. But I tell you what,
Yeah.
we'll get into the plot summary. Another thing that I will applaud this film for is, tell you what, get straight to it. Things are happening
Yeah.
in this. What, a minute in?
So in the trailer, it looked like we were going to get a bit of a sort of intro, because in the trailer you see them in the car, but it turns out that's like a flashback. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the cast, we got Dave. So there's like the four antagonists, who are Leonard, Sabrina, Adrian, and Redmond. That's Bautista, Nikki Amuka-Bird, Abby Quinn, and Rupert Grint. And then the couple are Jonathan Groff as Eric, Ben Aldridge as Andrew, and then Kristen Cui as Wen. So that's pretty much it, isn't it? M. Night Shyamalan obviously does pop up in a cameo. He's like
Just on telly.
just on telly. He's gone, how can I get myself in here? Shall I just come and knock on the cabin and say, all right, everything all right in here? No. You're just going to be on TV or something. Bloody hell.
Still in an air fryer.
Oh, yeah, he is still in there for, isn't he? Yeah, sold. So, yeah, it pretty much starts with, so Wen is on a vacation with her parents, Eric and Andrew, at their remote cabin in rural Pennsylvania, and she's mucking
Catching
about.
them grasshoppers.
Catching some grasshoppers, but talking to them in a way. Does she tell one grasshopper not to fart?
Yeah, she does. She goes, I'm going to name you after this girl in my class because she's real nice, but she does do loads of farts and always denies it. But so just don't do that.
Whoever, yeah, there it. Oh, sorry. Now you've said it. She always denies it, and you go, whoever did the rhyme did the crime. There's actually in Neil Marshall's The Lair, there's a whole bit where people do adult human males have a back and forth like, have you guffed, or whoever. How's it start? What's the first one you say?
I don't remember now. It's been a while now. Like, whoever
it's
smelt
like,
it dealt it.
Whoever smelt it dealt it. Whoever denied it supplied it. Whoever did the rhyme did the crime. And I'm like, there's no fucking way this is in like an actual filmmaker has written the script and gone, this'll get everyone right up. Fuck it hell. Anyway, sorry. Back to it.
Yeah, she's doing that and she's talking to the grasshoppers. And then within moments, old Dave Bautista comes marching over, introduces himself. Ever so nice. Have a lovely chat. His name is Leonard, and she gets through a bit of stranger danger, but unlike Pennywise, who goes, "Oh, you're Georgie, we ain't strangers no more," he basically goes, "I hope you won't be strangers very long. Actually, I'm here to be your friend." And then he plays a game where they take it in turns, but picking a petal off a flower and asking each other questions. Gets to know her, what her parents' names are, and again, we get some of the wider context here of the experiences and the social commentary that goes with the film. There's one bit where he says, where I think Wen explains, I have two dads. I call them Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew, so I can tell them apart when they're both my dad. So I use their first names with dad because then it will make it obvious who I'm talking to. I think it's very nice to have two dads. The only time it isn't is when my guidance counselor at school says how brilliant it is to have two dads, but she says it.
Yeah.
She says it so often that it feels like it's not a good thing. And again, that's it, isn't it? That's probably one of the experiences that people have because tell you what, people can't bang on about stuff.
People stop banging on about it. She does kind of mention no one else in her class has two dads as well. So,
or no one on the Disney Channel does. Burn on you, Disney.
Oh yeah, she does say that. Yeah, Disney Channel. Disney Channel's still a thing.
It's just Disney Plus now, I guess.
It's just Disney Plus now, mate. Don't worry about it. To be fair, what would you do if you looked out the cabin window and you saw your young daughter talking to a big tree of a man, Dave Bautista, who's dressed in a lovely pressed shirt, and he loves a pair of glasses. We've definitely mentioned this before. Dave Bautista and glasses go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly.
With the exception of in Stuber, where he's just had laser eye surgery, so he won't need glasses.
Of course.
It's the anti-Dave Bautista movie where he's really tried. I don't want to get typecast. No glasses in this one, please.
No glasses. The smaller the glasses, the more intense the role. So, Blade Runner 2049, the glasses were little Ken doll glasses.
Tiniest little glasses. I feel like if they get on and make that Gears of War movie soon, where he'll inevitably be Marcus Phoenix, if they don't do it quite soon, he can be his dad. And I feel like he could wear very tiny glasses as Adam Phoenix.
Whoever he is, he's like, can we get some tiny glasses on set for this? He's like, I don't think this character's going to have glasses. No, I'm not interested.
Yeah, he has some glasses in this one, and he's very nice, softly spoken, and a good
he is very
counterbalance
nice,
to the way he's usually played as an action star.
Yeah. And I guess it's like, even though we're not aware of what these four people are coming here for, and we're supposed to be a little bit, I guess, afraid of them, I think that the thing that would scare me the most is that they're just not getting to the point, are they? Never, ever getting to the point. Oh, we're going to have to do something real bad, and all you people are going to have to make a really bad decision when we get inside. All right. What's all that about then? I can't say, but I will.
Yeah. For the purposes of this movie's running, I get it. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like the amount of problems in a movie that you could have left a post-it note on the fridge or just talked about your issues.
Yeah, there would be no movie. There would there.
Yeah. Like, bloody hell. What's the actor's name that plays Professor Snape? Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman. Just don't buy jewelry for that woman in your office in Love Actually.
God.
Just say I've got a wife and I'm also your boss. It's not appropriate you're talking to me like that, and just get on. And then in an hour's time, I won't have to feel really horrible. And the sad bit of this film.
Just end.
The film would just end and it wouldn't happen. So just don't go in the woods to look for the Blair Witch. It's probably not worth it. Yeah, so there just wouldn't be a film. But it is true that you could just sit down and go, look, you're probably not going to believe this. It sounds absolutely crackers, I know, but there's going to be an apocalypse. We've all had these weird visions about it. This is what I think is going to happen. But yeah, I guess it'd be a very functional and not entertaining movie. So they have to have some license to it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So after this brief chat, everybody, the other three of Dave Bautista's little gang, all just start slowly walking through the forest. They're all carrying various weird combo weapons. They look like the kind of weapons that you make in the Last of Us game, where like you've got a baseball bat and you sellotape a pair of scissors to it. They're kind of like
very Dead Rising, right? Where it's like, right, I've got some chainsaw, I've got some chainsaws and a kayak paddle. I can make like this amazing weapon.
Or if you ever played Home Alone on the Sega Mega Drive or another console, it's probably out something else. You make weapons by combining all the random items, like some sort of snowball launcher, with elastic bands and all that stuff.
So that's what they've made. They've got all of their makeshift Home Alone weapons. They've MacGyvered it all.
That seems like a really weird, unnecessary, bizarre addition that is kind of added for what? I mean, I know it's supposed to be about their visions, essentially, but it just feels kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess
it's almost like...
is it going to apocalypse even harder if they don't make that weapon exactly right?
Exactly. And also, like, maybe just turn up to the cabin without those weapons first? I don't know. Yeah. I feel like you turn up with those weapons, you're automatically like, why have you got like the head of a mallet on a chain on another stick? What, are you all right? Yeah, I've just knocked this up in the garage. I've come to bludgeon someone's skull in. Don't worry, it's not yours.
So I'm actually forbidden from hurting you. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess it just fits into the aesthetic. And how about in the book? Does it have more background into these guys with them making them, or is it just is like the Nun?
I think it's pretty much the same. Like, I think it pretty much plays out exactly the same if I remember correctly, the first scene in the book is the grasshoppers collecting bit. So yeah, I think for the most part there isn't any background. If I remember as well, I don't think there's all that much background into the characters of Eric and Andrew. I might be getting it completely wrong, it was a while ago I read it.
Been a while since you read it, but in the film, Wen sees the others arriving. She gets scared, runs in. Like Leonard shouts after and says, "Look, please tell your dads to let us in because we have to talk about something very important with them. My heart's broken because I'm going to have to do something right horrible." She runs in, warns the dad, warns Eric and Andrew. Then she gets them into the house. They lock the door, and then the titular knock at the cabin comes.
The titular knock at the cabin. It is basically like, what are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad? What is that? Some kind of knock at the cabin?
Yeah.
But it's a good. Do you know? First of all, I know who's knocking without even needing to see it. It's definitely a Dave Bautista knock. It's slow. It's measured. There's probably one knock too many in it. I feel like if you didn't want someone to be scared of you, you would do like a
1, 2, 3.
or not dum 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 dum.
Yeah, a few too many knocks. I am a big fan of an EastEnders knock myself when I'm at someone's house.
Are you? Interesting.
Yeah. These two big ones, I go boom, 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 boom.
And then you say something like, "Yeah,
I'm your dad." What?
I'm your dad. You know what? I'm your dad. Let me in.
Yeah, so he gives a knock at the cabin. Wen is insistent they shouldn't let them in. Probably exacerbated by the fact that the others are wandering around by the windows anytime. Already, they're pacing about the place. Yeah. They encourage them to let them in. They refuse. They try to phone the old police to get the guys lifted. And they shout that, I think one of the other characters shouts through, "We know your phones don't get signal here."
Yeah. And so sorry, we've had to cut the phone lines. Luckily, how many times you turn up at a cabin Airbnb and they'd have a bloody landline phone on the go?
If you're in rural Pennsylvania, who knows?
Okay. Well,
so they break in. Old Redmond is scarily bashing his way through the door. Dave Bautista comes in through the cellar. They break in. Yeah. We have the first confrontation comes with the guys gather up some weapons, and is it Andrew? Oh no, it's Eric who ends up. They have like
the fire poker, and Eric ends up in a fight. He gets a concussion somehow. Does he just get whacked, or does he slip?
He's fighting with Sabrina, and she dodges, and he takes a tumble and bashes himself right on the noggin.
Oh dear! It's because he's wearing a dressing gown while he's fighting.
He's in his dressing gown. He must have slippers on. Thing about slippers, real slippery.
Very slippery, yeah, exactly. I hope he's dressed underneath that dressing gown. It'd be very embarrassing if it just came open and he was just.
As we find out later, he's jumped in the lake with all his clothes on. Probably.
Oh yeah,
clothes are probably on the drying line.
That's madness. That was probably the most jarring moment of this film, where I was like, "Hang on a minute, I'm not living a carefree lifestyle like that, where I'm just jump in the water. I'll get my swimmers on first, thanks. No, come and jump in the water now. No, I will not."
Yeah. Just
totally unnecessary.
In this economy. Yeah, so they break in. When Eric slips and hurts himself, someone who's been his assailant moments ago, so Sabrina is very much like, he's hurt himself, he's bashed his head, let me look after him.
You're like, get away from me.
But Andrew does not see Leonard's coming in. Does he knock him out? Does he just capture him? We just captures him off screen. He
I'm not sure about knocking people out. I think he just captures him. They tie them up, don't they, onto to chairs, and they're all kind of like facing the right way. Obviously, Wen isn't tied up, but they put little cartoon on the TV for her, because if 4 people break into your house or your cabin, stick a couple of cartoons on, you'll be calmed down, you'll be right as rain.
Yeah, and this is probably where you get some of the speech quirks that you get, but I think Leonard's character is very thoughtful. It's like, I think this cartoon is good. It shows, I suspect that
Oh
it
yeah,
teaches tolerance
empathy and
and
yeah.
empathy. Yeah,
And this is when they start suspecting
interesting.
them of like this being essentially a hate. This is an attack based on their sexuality and their lifestyle
Yeah,
and their family unit. They think that somebody has just come there to fuck them up, essentially. So they're very
yeah. We see that like
yeah.
you've taken against us because we're a same-sex couple that has adopted a child, and they all kind of insist, no, none of us knew who you were before we got here.
It's weird that
And
that part was left out of the visions, though, right?
yeah, is it just that you go to this cabin? Maybe
It's
that's
so
part
specific
of
with the
the
visions,
big
right?
plan.
Make sure your weapon is like nunchucks, but they're made out of two pieces of
Corn on the
timber.
cob.
Two corn on the cobs, ladled with butter, Lurpak. Make sure it's that. Who have we got to make kill themselves? Don't worry about that bit. Don't worry about that. That's not important.
It's not really my department, actually. I'm the weapons vision person. You want to talk to
Oh yeah.
the victims vision person? It'll be
Oh, he's on
along.
holiday. He's on holiday.
Oh,
He's got the week off.
you want to contact whoever is out of office? It's me. Oh, I hadn't agreed
Oh,
to that.
forget. That's embarrassing. I'm afraid I
um,
don't know. You just have to leave that bit out, unfortunately.
yeah, so they don't know, but they insist that actually it's nothing to do with them. It's not only that they're not homophobic, which they are not. They say they're not. But it's also that they didn't even know who they were. So it's almost irrelevant to the point. And this is where they do some explanation where the characters all introduce themselves and what they do.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's your
Redmond is the
daddy
most
and what does he
resistance.
do?
Yeah, he's the most resistance to. Like, what's the point, everybody? This fucking hell, Redmond. Do you have any visions about not fucking moaning?
Jesus Christ. We're also made to believe that they all like traveled there. I think Sabrina says she used all her savings to travel. So how expensive? And then she said she drove. So I was like, how expensive is the gas?
in petrol money these days, Ben, in this economy,
That's true. That's true. Good point. Good
it's
point.
expensive. Long haul drive as well. America's massive, so she's driven along. So
Good point.
we have Leonard, who reveals that he is a school teacher and coach. We have Sabrina, who we've already seen from tending to Eric's wounds, is a nurse, she claims. Adrian is a cook. And then Redmond works for the gas board, is the gasman.
I work for the gasman, mate. Don't worry about it. And we're also made to believe that like they didn't know each other. Well, they've spoken obviously, but they didn't know
On the
each other
internet.
before this whole scenario. It wasn't like they're all mates. They all went to school together. They're all pally wally. Nope, none of that. They met on the internet on a message board where, yeah, obviously we'll get into the reasons for that. They have
They
no
outline what they
intention.
are now. They see the visions, right? They say, I tell you what, we've had these visions, and they put it to them at this point that they've all had these same visions of how the world is going to end. And the visions run thusly: that the oceans will rise and claim large areas of the land. Many people will drown. Buildings will be destroyed. Then there will be a plague. Then the sky will fall like pieces of glass falling to the earth. And then the final one, that God's fingers will come down, scorch the earth, and then it will end with an everlasting darkness.
I'd be
And
like, in order for me to believe these visions a little bit more, or this prophecy, why do you have to describe it in such a incredibly religious way when you know you're going to come across as a like religious extremist,
like a cult. Yeah.
like a cult? So don't describe it like that. Also, don't describe it so poetically. Just say, listen. If if you don't do this, if you don't make the sacrifice, there will be a load of earthquakes and tsunamis. That's the first thing. There's going to be a terrible a flu bug will come across, but it won't happen to me. But all of these things, right? Well, I will get into this, but the fact that they're already on TV, like, ain't as easy as that. Like, oh no, you've caused this thing now. It's immediately on TV that this has happened. It will take weeks and months to like happen. I guess earthquakes, not so much. But people aren't just going to suddenly all be dying in hospital sick with this flu. It take a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, that bit felt a bit
There are
unbelievable
some
to me. But
there are some structural problems to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so
a lot of
that's
stretch. You kind of meant to like at some point. It feels like this is really urgent. We need to make this decision right now, this second. Oh, right,
because
okay,
it's
yeah.
coming. And they keep checking their watches that they pull out. Andrew points out, you check your watch all the bloody time. Maybe they just know what the deadline is. They know that these things are they've got to fit four in.
So again, all of their visions happened to have the exact time that these things had happened, but they didn't have any details about who they were supposed to be. Yeah, someone has made a real big admin error along the way,
Maybe
right?
maybe it's like it's one of the things. Maybe it's like the signs, and they got their vision specifically timed, so that would have exactly the right amount of time. So they couldn't get in touch with them weeks earlier.
If you kept having these visions, do you reckon you'd end up on a message board? I reckon I don't know, go to the doctor, get on with my life.
So having these visions. Yeah.
You what? Me too.
You touched upon it, Ben, but they basically say this is the solution, right? Sorry, this is going to be tough, but basically, to avoid these horrible things happening, you will have to make a decision as a family.
Yeah.
That you have to make a decision as a family that you are going to, one of you is going to be sacrificed and will die, and then we can't do it. It's very important. We can't do it, and you can't kill yourself. You will have to. One of you will have. The others will have to kill the person that you decide to kill,
So
and then
specific.
if you don't do that, you'll be basically the last people left in the world, and the last things that you'll stay alive just long enough to walk around in the eternal damnation that will be left.
Yeah. The eternal damnation. Yeah, and obviously immediately they go, you're all off your noggins. You're all religious extremists who have come here to either exact some sort of hate-based attack on us, or you're just off your nut, and we're not gonna obviously kill one of the three of us in order to do it. Bit mean it includes old Wen as well. Imagine both of just turned to each other and went, shall we just
nah. Yeah, you can imagine that. But I'm very, like, from a reality TV perspective, as a little kid, Wen should be very confident. She's got immunity. She's like,
yeah,
it's gonna be one of you dads.
That's true. Total immunity.
Yeah, no
it's
one's
one
letting
of you
the
dads.
Sweet little girl die.
No, definitely not.
I mean, pretty quickly at this point, right? They say, okay, a plague will be released for every time you refuse to make the sacrifice. First up, first time of asking, the Chris Tarrant music comes on. It goes, will you sacrifice thing? And they confer as a family, and they all say no. Final answer.
Final answer. You want to phone a friend? No.
No, just don't need save my lifelines. Actually, just no. And Redmond, accepting of his fate, must comment. Actually, Rupert Grint.
Yeah, I mean a very short role, but very.
Yeah, great Boston.
Very impactful role. We got great performance. I don't understand why they've got to die. I don't understand where that fits in anything.
Just part of it. It's in the visions, Ben. Just gotta.
Yeah, but I feel like, is that not just going to happen anyway, whether one of them dies or not?
Oh, they wouldn't have died in the thing that happens though. They need to die by having a pretty head smashed with hammer.
I still don't understand now. Am I being an idiot? Feel free to say yes.
No, you're not being an idiot. I think.
What has them dying got to do with?
If you suspend disbelief and go to the final metaphor that they are like an alternative four horsemen of the apocalypse, they're not death, plague, famine, and war. They are. Spoilers for later in the movie. I think they describe them as malice, like nurturing.
Oh yeah, I remember nurturing. Yeah, it is like
nurturing, healing, and what's the last one? He's like
nurturing,
coaching,
healing,
or like
yeah, I know what you mean.
He is like encouragement or guidance, maybe.
And Redmond he bottled a gay man once.
Possibly Andrew. We learn this later on. So he is. Yeah, so he represents. So they're chosen, and they are symbolic and harbingers of this apocalypse. So their death in response to the family refusing to make a sacrifice is basically the sound of heaven's trumpets. This is the blast of a thing that ushers one portion, because each of them begins an event which brings several deaths, right?
You describing it has made it make more sense to me now, even though I've consumed the story in two different
mediums. I'm going to bring you up by a ranking by the time I get to the ends.
Yeah.
So Redmond, quite angrily, puts like a white balaclava over his head, like a James Bond villain in a snow setting. And
I hate it because you could see his little ginger beard hairs poking through it.
Yeah. Not enough denier on those things.
No.
He's got, I tell you, maybe it's the white stocking over his face. Maybe it's his slightly unkempt, like ginger hair as he puts on. But Redmond here, had Jackie Earle Haley not played it phenomenally already, good Rorschach.
Good Rorschach, yeah, definitely.
Puts it on. He insists that the family, not when so much, but he insists that they keep looking at him and not look away. We as an audience look away because this is a PG-13, and he the others behind him do like a ceremonial pace up and down, like guards outside the Wicked Witch, the West's castle, and then just bonk him on the head.
Bonk him on the head with one of these things, and then very kindly, Bautista carries the body out of sight so that they don't have to see it, and then they go, right, that's it. Until tomorrow. Thanks for being here. But even though
we'll do that, because really put a bit of telly on first before they say that.
Yeah, of course, put a bit of telly on.
And they point out that earthquakes have already happened out in the Pacific, and then they're going to be they show some flooded places in Hawaii. And at first, as it's Sabrina's like, this isn't what we saw. And then all of a sudden the news flash comes back on and says, oh shit, there's been a secondary earthquake. And actually now it's not going to be like the other places we just saw. These tsunamis, as they're described in the wiki summary, because we don't have notes because it's a new film, mega tsunamis. Like when Jez has got Mark's got his
laptop in the bath. Mega tsunami. That wasn't the bad thing. What was the bad thing?
So he's this is kind of nuts.
Why did they show the first bit? It's because the first bit's supposed to cast doubt on the fact that
it's real. They
are who they say they are, because they're like,
it's what's happened already based on what happened 4 hours ago, and then the news flash happens to indicate that, oh no, this is happening immediately. The only thing I don't understand is suspension of disbelief for the contrivance of a film. Where do they get this footage from? Because we see footage of some people on the beach where a massive wave comes and the guy gets absolutely obliterated, and the footage ends with the camera. Was he on Facebook Live? Was he?
It makes
I've just explained it. That could be exactly what it is.
They were like, there's some footage that we've just got, and I'm like, what? Someone's filmed it, clearly died, and then somehow the footage, someone's fished the phone out and gone, let's double check all these phones in the middle of this tsunami to see if there's any decent footage on there.
I think that's exactly what it is, though. He was probably broadcasting live. He was doing a live stream, and they've pulled it.
Maybe we're still supposed to believe that.
Accidentally explained it, but yeah, they've got this footage, and we see big, just like a Deep Impact time, where like the sea forms massive waves, and basically everyone gets obliterated by this huge wave. So their first prediction has come true. They turn the telly off and say, right, see you tomorrow morning. Within reason, we'll do what you want.
Within reason, we'll do what you want. Yeah, they say we'll tend to all your needs. I don't want anything from you, thanks. Are we still tied up? Yes, but we'll allow you to face each other. That's nice.
He won't say. He goes, could you untie me? And like, I did say attend to your needs. or just other unreasonable things like, can I have some chicken tenders from KFC, but
Right.
McDonald's chips
Okay.
and
Burger King Coke.
Burger King Coke, please? Just branded Coke. It's just no. You said you tend to my needs, and what I need
Is
is
that?
those three. To be honest, if the world's ending, you can have a pizza as well.
I'm just
Half and
I'm just
half. And when I say half and half, I want half of it at Domino's and half of it at Pizza Hut.
maybe they want half and half. Half Domino's, half Tesco's pizza, frozen pizza, but I want it still frozen, and the other half cooked, please. Is that okay?
I want you to get those things, then I want you to freeze the Domino's and thaw the Tesco's. It's not reasonable.
It's just not
Stop,
reasonable.
please. Yeah, so within reason, he's going to do that, and he says, "Look, just go to sleep now." And they do. Is this the point we have a little? Again, it's difficult when you haven't made notes because you're in a cinema and start.
Yeah.
We have a flashback at some point that shows them arriving at the cabin, having a great time. We have another flashback later, which is about the past history of Redmond that Andrew then remembers. You might remember it around now that he recognizes Redmond as someone called O'Bannon that assaulted him. So check his wallet. His name's O'Bannon, and Leonard refuses at this time. But we go learn more about this a bit later.
What's the connection of that as well? Is it just another thing to again cast doubt upon it? Because it seems
I guess
specific to
guess it's a connection that it says, well, it's not random. Someone has met us before. Like this guy O'Bannon, he mentions in his introduction that he made some mistakes in his past and had been to prison and had changed his life. But in this one, he says that a guy beat me up for being gay, which is again a reason to distrust and dislike these people that are speaking to them. And basically, Andrew's point of the film is he's basically thinking that if you're not a religious cult, you are here with some horrible plan to force us to hurt one each other and take our family apart.
Yeah, and that feels. I mean, I was kind of trying to put myself in the position of these guys, and I'm thinking I probably would think it was that until I literally saw planes falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I would probably. It would probably be the third one for me as well. That would be like, oh, this is something I can't explain anymore. We basically go to the next morning, and Wen is having some breakfast prepared by Adrienne.
She says, "I love feeding people. You know, I love cooking for people." She has like a feeder. You know, someone's like, "Oh, I made you a full English." Oh, another one. I've already had two today because of you. That's all right. Getting down
That's
here.
Right, make another one. Need feeding.
Free of everything.
Skinny. Wen does manage to sneak a knife out of her food and has passed it to Daddy Eric, who is using it to try and store himself free.
Ever so sneaky. And then he says, "Do you remember what you did at Thanksgiving?" She goes, "Yeah." When I nod at you, remember and do it again. So they've got a little plan going on. Yeah.
Before that, she escapes first, though, right? She goes out through the hole in the basement, sneaks out, but Leonard captures her. It's only a minor scene. He doesn't capture her in a mean way. He just picks her back up and takes her back in.
Oh
says,
yeah.
I'm really sorry. I'm afraid you're not allowed to leave.
There's a bit of a little bit of tension there, but yeah, I don't think we're supposed to actually be scared of him.
There's one of the things I think that the parents, like Andrew and Eric, are afraid every time that any of the others are in contact with Wen, but it's primarily Leonard that does it, and he's very careful in ensuring that he's not intending on hurting anything. He picks her up very gently and always gives them to sit with one of her dads.
Yeah, exactly.
And very quickly, Adrienne, having fed the characters, it goes to another choice that morning, and says, "Okay, will you make the choice again?" The narrative hasn't changed. They both say no, and again, really emotional delivery here. Like Adrienne stands before them and basically says, like, I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to talk about all these things. I wasn't going to say his name, but I have a son who I love, and in the visions I've watched him die, and it's horrible.
Why would the visions be her watching him die? Because she's there in the cabin. She's not with her son when all the apocalypse is
I
happening.
guess she with him in the vision because she's seeing things
If they didn't do
independently.
the thing, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, who
Sorry,
knows?
I've got so many questions. I know. I can't help it.
I'm gonna have to
I
read
feel
this.
I feel very cynical about it, I guess.
You're Andrew. You don't
Yeah,
see
I'm
that. You don't
Andrew in
see
the
the
scenario.
signs.
I don't
Yeah,
see
he's
the
like,
signs. I
no,
don't
it's
see a little
tricking me.
angel in the mirror.
Yeah, and that's what I think that it's around this point after this next choice that Eric, who has a concussion, it's been established, and is sensitive to the light,
Yeah.
feels that you might have seen something like a figure standing through the in the window. But um, Adrian makes her sacrifice. She does tell him that this is my son's name and I love him very much. And then she gets
Hmm.
bonked on the head and is dead as well. Again, Leonard picks her body up and takes it out of the room, and they switch the telly on.
Hmm.
Question, like, please, if you're a non-UK listener and you've watched this, I have a question for you. In the version that we saw at the cinemas, it's not universal. There are some internationally focused TV spots, but the majority of the news broadcasts we see are stylized like the BBC News, which is probably our most famous news in the UK.
Hmm.
In international versions of this, so if you get listeners in a few countries in Europe, you have listeners in the US, Australia. Does it show your localized news? As if it's news from your television networks, the icons, the typography, the banners, or does it all look like BBC News to you as well? I'm really interested to know.
Yeah.
Um, we get BBC News 24 comes on and basically says, "Tell you what, there's a new flu-like virus coming around." When did this book come out? Very on the nose for 2019.
Yeah, I know. I don't know when it came out actually. A few years ago, I guess. Yeah.
So there
2018, did we
is,
say? I think we said, yeah,
yeah.
2018 novel.
So there is a basically a COVID-like virus, more rapidly acting, but one that specifically targets young people, very infectious for children and very deadly. And it very quickly talks about the large numbers of outbreaks in certain cities. And again, this is where
Mhm.
Andrew can't buy into it because, like you say, Ben, this can't happen overnight. This virus has to have existed
Yeah.
beforehand.
He says he's
Maybe
read
he's been
stories
reading
like
about it for
about it.
months.
Yeah,
Maybe
essentially.
maybe our point of plausibility and belief in this is that all of a sudden mortality has started climbing and kids are dying from it rather than just being ill. Maybe the ones that are in hospital have just started tanking and dying.
Yeah. Tanking and dying.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that's the next sacrifice, and I think we have some more flashbacks at this point, right?
yeah, there's a flashback of when Eric and Andrew adopt when, like for the first time, which is very heartfelt sort of moment. Obviously, as you said, that we did get a flashback to the bar when Andrew was attacked by a man, and we don't officially look and see that it's Rupert Grint, but I think we're supposed to believe that
Yeah,
it
we're
is
given
him.
we're given the impression that it's him, right? Because we see a guy with red hair and you don't see his face properly, so it's given room for us to have ambiguity.
This is
We
the
might as
thing.
well
I
hit.
think this film does really well at sort of making everything seem quite ambiguous that we're supposed to make our own decision about what's going on because we kind of see the same thing as the characters and we supposed to believe it. But yeah, Andrew starts sort of going to the gym, training because obviously he feels like the world is out to get him,
Yeah,
as of course
he
you
was a
would be
victim.
experiencing that as a gay man. And he buys a gun as well.
Yeah, he buys a gun, which comes into play in a little bit, which he has with them. Again, it's all these. It's very, like I say, it's very the signs. All these things have come into place. We might as well hit another couple of the other flashbacks as well. We've seen them going on the holiday, and they have a song that they share about putting on your boogie boogie shoes.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Casey and the Sunshine Band, right?
I'm not sure.
I think it
Um,
is.
so you see that moment, you see the happiness they have together. even in the nice moments of them adopting when, though, there are difficulties in that. So they're adopting a child, and you see the hospital they go through to see the baby when that they're going to adopt, and he says to the nurse or the person that escorts him into the room, "Oh, my wife couldn't make it. This is her brother," because they obviously can't present
Yeah, of
themselves as a gay
course.
couple.
Yeah.
Maybe it's part of the thing, and we also see some elements of the family life as well. We've seen, as you already mentioned, Ben, that Eric clearly has a very supportive family. We never see his mom, but within moments, we see Andrew's parents come to visit, looking very uncomfortably and having driven several hours to see them leave within about 45 minutes. And then
45
we see
minutes,
Eric's
yeah.
mom phoning off camera to ask how
Mm-hmm.
it's going.
Mm-hmm.
It shows the journey that Andrew has taken to feel the way he does about the world, and feel the distrust, and that there's actually, like, when your own parents don't have much to say to you or much love for you in the world, like, what inclination have you got to do anything that would save millions of strangers who you haven't had any better response from?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Um, yeah, it does a really good job of sort of fleshing out these characters and having us understand them and everything they've gone through together, why their bond would be so strong, as sort of a family unit as well. Uh, yeah, I think it does a good job of establishing that. Um, what kind of happens next? I mean, there's a lot of like the characters like Leonard, Sabrina, and Adrian all kind of like quietly trying to convince them that that they're the real deal, that they're not religious nuts, that they've come here to help essentially save the world and to save everybody else by them making a sacrifice. And again, I feel like I could get on board with them in a way if the end goal wasn't that one of us has got to kill the other. It just kind of feels so extreme that it's almost like, well, there's no way, surely, that they're gonna be able to agree to that.
I guess you're trying to I guess you're trying to create almost an impossible choice, because they say, we can't do it. We can't do it for you. You can't kill yourself either. And I guess you're trying to make a really difficult decision. Don't worry, but I'm not going to ask at the end. So, no, if your family was there, who'd have it then?
Oh
but
God.
yeah, this is the next bit. So, as we've said, Wen has stolen a knife and they're trying to break out. They give her the signal, and she does a big tantrum, which distracts Leonard as he's trying to calm her down, which gives Eric the time to finish cutting through his ropes and breaking free.
Mm.
While he is then kicking off, Andrew is able to escape and he runs out to the car, where
Yeah.
he's already announced that he has a gun in the boot, in a safely stored gun. It's in a lockbox.
It's not
Um,
loaded. Don't worry about it.
yeah, it's not
Um,
loaded. It's in a lockbox, but they do have a gun, and he runs out to get it. Sabrina pursues him and
Kneecaps a
injures his
shit.
leg, smashes
Yeah.
his leg with big hammer.
I feel like anticipate that. As soon as she comes towards you, just be like, I'm not going to let her swing that thing at me. I'm going to back
Do a
off.
tuck,
No, we
do a
just
tuck jump, lift your legs
do a
into
tuck
the air.
jump. But he seems to just take it,
But she comes out.
Takes.
She's been playing a Smash Brothers, so she comes out when you get her. She's like whizzing that hammer around.
Yeah.
She bashes him with the hammer, and then she doesn't. Again, she's not naturally a violent person, so she doesn't. It's not a full on attack mode. He gets into the car and she does smash the window to get at him, and she's poking him and sort of stabbing him in the side with a shot, but not intending to hurt him. He gets a gun. He gets the gun out, loads it, and shoots at her and fends her off. She runs away, and then he goes
Yeah.
back
So
in to stop the others.
so he
Well, stop
purposely
Leonard.
misses her just to scare her. But I wonder what this scene was weird because she seems to run off into the woods. Like what actually happens? Because she must get to a point and go, right, that's it, I'm running back now, but go
Yeah,
into the back door.
yeah. I need to
And
be
even though I
gone
know
just for a
even though I
second.
know even though I know he's got a gun, I'm still gonna run in and scream. Just,
Ah,
"Ah!"
like the Virtua Cop "Don't shoot me" people that just run at you
Yeah,
aggressively
exactly.
waving their arms. Um,
Don't shoot.
Yeah, so they come along. He goes inside and he basically holds Leonard at gunpoint. Sabrina comes running back in, and he shoots her. Are we to believe here that he's shot her dead, or is she just almost dead, meaning that Leonard has to finish her off as part of the sacrifice?
I feel like she's dead, but Leonard has to do something to her to sort of like make that count.
Yeah, he has to crack the egg open to let the apocalypse out.
Let the apocalypse out, yeah, which is in
And
her brain.
and he does, and he kind of moves on with that. Even though Andrew is standing there with a gun, he's like, well, he's like, stop that. He just ignores him. He has to do it. And then
Yeah.
they put the TV on, and this becomes, I guess, the almost irrefutable section where what's happening here, and literally the newscast is now there are planes dropping out of the sky. You see video of
Yeah.
planes crashing down everywhere. There are news articles. We have some international ones. We go to Australia and so on saying there are planes falling out of the sky. They've grounded all the flights, but no one knows what's happening. Is it a cyber attack? And
Yeah.
there's still a reach for a plausible explanation.
Yeah, I think Andrew even says that terrorist shit's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
He does say that, yeah. So he's clearly even at this point still cynical, but Eric is like starting to. There's a few moments where Eric is like silently staring ahead, and Andrew's like, "Are you all right?" So you can see he's kind of being like bewitched by it a little bit, and he even says he sees a figure in the mirror at one point, doesn't he? So I don't know if we're supposed to believe he thinks he sees an angel or something.
And we're always led to believe that, like, there's that possibility because he has a concussion, maybe this is something he's seeing from there. But Eric is also, of the two of them, shown to be the person who has like a faith, because when they're sitting at the hospital adopting Wen, there is like a big old mural of Jesus, and he goes, oh, you can do some prayers if you want, like I won't make fun of you or anything like that. So
Yeah.
it's and he has had some conversations with him where he's indicating he might believe him, but has said they have a symbol where they point at each other and said both in this together, and he says like I'm with you in this.
Yeah.
And Andrew keeps charge. He basically says to Leonard, I'm going to lock you in the bathroom, we're going to leave. As soon as they've shut the bathroom door, a window smashes, and he goes,
Yeah, fit like, for that window.
And he doesn't, and he absolutely tanks this one because he shoots him through the shower curtain and doesn't make a peep until Andrew comes close and he wrestles the gun off him.
Yeah, doesn't make a peep. Jesus.
Yeah, he's like, you must go. Come ever so sharp, getting shot in the arm. But again, even when he has the gun, he sort of says like I'm not going to hurt you. He said, come on, everyone, let's go outside. I'd prefer to do this last bit outside. Goes out to the porch and says, with the planes falling and everything like that, there isn't much time. When I'm gone, there will literally be minutes for you to. There are literally going to be minutes for you to do this, and then it's going to be too late. Gives them the choice. They still can't do anything. They send Wen up to a treehouse to listen to some, get headphones on and not come down until one of them comes to fetch her. Again, from a film and a horror point of view, it is off screen, but it isn't not gruesome. Leonard slits his own throat and has passed away, and he says all of humanity has been judged. Yeah. And then lightning strikes start coming down everywhere.
Yeah. And I was worried here because it was like, okay, you've got a few minutes left to make the decision after this. But I'd be like, yeah, how long's that? How do you know? Like, if we're going to go through with the sacrifice, I'd be worried that it's going to be like a missed situation where you go through with it, but, everyone saves at the last minute.
And this is, again, maybe this is why this is a great choice for, in many ways, for being an M. Night Shyamalan movie, because all the way through it, if you're going in with the expectation of what his films are, you're expecting a twist. You could go in and think, is this an elaborate trick? And then at the end, you'll see them in the car going, tricked another couple into killing themselves?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
is it going to be, are we going to see an actual mystic intervention and some angels will come down again? All form for what his type of filmmaking could be. Um, the same. Would they have a cruel twist where it's like, yes, you did it, but it's too late? But we
Yeah.
get what is maybe
I
a more
think
traditional play out and a handoff
I
here.
won't
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I won't ruin the end of the book, but as far as I'm aware, the book is a bit more tragic in a way. Again, I won't spoil it. A bit more tragic. Less of a let's make a choice, more of a terrible thing kind of happens while the choice is trying to be made. Um, and if I remember right, like some of the antagonists have got a bit of a disagreement between them as well, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure Redmond lives longer
Oh,
as well.
oh, okay. I'll have to read this book actually. But on Redmond's point of view, we forgot to mention as Andrew got the gun, he did check Redmond's wallet, and he is O'Bannon, the
Yeah,
person who he remembers attacking him. So again, as far as that name lined up, it was him. So we have that. We have that extra connection now.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
at this point, it's all going along, but Daddy Eric himself has made the choice, and he goes, "Hey, um, yeah, this is a good bit because for me anyway, it was good because even though to this very point, Andrew doesn't believe in all of this stuff, even with planes falling from the sky and there being lightning bolts like scorching the earth and starting terrible fires. He doesn't believe that this is a thing, but he does believe Eric because that's what he points out. He says, like, I don't want to believe it. I believe you.
yeah.
Um, and then he says, okay, you have to kill me. But Eric's having none of it and says, no, no, you are staying, and this is the thing. He has almost himself, whether it's by the act of his concussion, whether it's his poetic way of speaking, whether it is a vision that he has truly had, he goes through a vision saying, hey, you're going to do it and you're going to kill me because
Mm.
our daughter needs you to look after her, and I I have made peace with this. I am a person of faith, so I know that I'm doing this in. I really believe it. You believe me. I believe this is the right thing to do,
Mm.
and I am. I can see very clearly what the future looks like, and we even see it. We see it delivered in film. We see an older Andrew going out with a grown-up Wen,
Yeah, that was
and
interesting, wasn't it? Yeah.
they're enjoying. They're happy. They're in a normal looking world, and they are
Mhm.
they have a good life, and he describes what her life is, that she has someone that she loves, and she's successful and she's happy and all these great things.
Yeah,
And in that moment, uh with Eric's encouragement, he does oh sorry Eric does point out the whole four horsemen of the apocalypse sense that we needed to meet them and we needed to see their sacrifices. I think in his mind, there was no way they were making this decision at any point before this point. And he even points out maybe this is what people have been doing for in the past as well. That's what people have to do periodically. And it poses a lot of things that it never confirms or debunks. But he has this moment where he says, "Hey, we've seen these people, and we needed to meet these people and see them make their sacrifices because they are his four horsemen of the apocalypse." And again, repeating ourselves here, I think he describes them as like malice, nurturing, healing, and like
guidance.
guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
And then that was it. He does it. He dies, and then lightning bolt strikes the cabin and begins to burn that down. But um,
Yeah. But
rain
I'd
rain
automatically be like, it's
begins.
too late. I'd be like, it's too late.
Yeah,
But yeah, rain does begin. So
rain begins
uh,
and the light goes out. Andrew goes up and meets Wen, and then just have a bloody good cry.
It is sad. It is sad, isn't it? Like it's
It says
incredibly.
brutal and very well, like it's a very well performed movie. I think it does great stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, almost like with the mist, it's kind of like hopeless at the end. It's still just as tragic as the mist, but like feels a bit more hopeful, I guess. The fact that and as M. Night Shyamalan movies like to end, I think this is how Split ended as well. If you want to add a little extra bit of content to the end of the film, everyone gather in a diner and watch it on TV. I think it happens at the
Yeah,
end of Split.
that happens, right? They walk along, they find the truck of the people of our four horsemen of the apocalypse that came early on, and we basically get orgy of evidence that they were exactly who they say they were. We have Leonard's details and some more like a class, yeah, a thing that all of his class, all of his students that he teaches have signed. We see Redmond's ID. We see Sabrina's nursing
Oh yeah.
like ID badge. We
Basically,
see Adrian's picture of her son.
it's like, right, we got to bring a bag of evidence to confirm all these things, just in case someone finds the bag, whoever survives finds the bag. The evidence bag. Have you got the evidence bag? Yeah, I brought the evidence bag. Don't worry about it. Frame for
Evidence bag
photo.
is all here. There's a little time capsule from each of us. And then you're right. They go to the diner. They see people conveniently, a little bit of Justice League about this, Dawn of Justice. They flick through all of the
Yeah,
channels and basically see that each news channel is covering a different one of the current world disasters, and they're all fine. So basically,
yeah,
planes have all been grounded safely. You get a lovely hospital in Edinburgh saying, actually, no one's died for the last couple of hours. We've got this, we're okay. We got it under control. We get that the tsunamis are just a thing that happened, but we hear that there have been deaths, but I think you see the waters just beginning to drop away, and someone's been saved by the fact that the waters have just subsided and the lightning strikes have ended.
yeah.
And then
Um,
sorry, go
and
on.
I think there's like a news report saying, look, this was a massive pandemic, but in the last hour, no one's died, so I think it's over.
Yeah, you think they said, "Oh, maybe we've cracked it." Like, actually, we've discovered there's a treatment or something like that we can use. We'll roll it out everywhere. But they just say it's just backing up. It's stopping. And I guess it's presented as if it's a miraculous end to all of these things that have come suddenly. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, Eric decides to, Eric's point as he's encouraging Andrew to shoot him is that like we've been chose to make this one because we loved each other so much, and that if we chose to sacrifice it, then it would truly be a huge sacrifice for one of us to be gone. And they, Andrew and Wen, get back in the car, and the song "Boogie Shoes" by, you're correct, Ben Casey and the Sunshine Band
yeah,
plays. Um, and they, at first it comes on, it makes him sad, and he turns it off. Then Wen puts it back on for a second, then she turns it off, and they both put it on and listen to it. And then in a film where, much like Signs, we've kind of been encouraged to think, oh, you know what, there are signs of something symbolic and more important in things that you can't necessarily explain. I take it that they both take it as a sign that Eric is somewhere with them, and he's looking, and that's because it was one of his songs that he'd put on a playlist that he'd made for them. So
yeah.
it is some kind of symbol that Eric is with them and he lives on
With
in
them in a
some way.
way, yeah.
But yeah,
I'm glad.
and
I'm glad they didn't sing or dance. I felt like it would have been
yeah, it
inappropriate.
would have been inappropriate. So we're happy to hear this song, but we're not going to do the sing along that we did earlier.
No, that'd be silly. Yeah. So
That's it.
that's it for Knock at the Cabin. Have you got any name game for me to enjoy? I've
I
got some
got a
name game
few
for you
for
to
you.
enjoy, I guess.
I got a few for you. Um, okay, Ben. So what's the synopsis of this one? Let's make sure we've got this on.
The synopsis is: while vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand that they make a choice to avert the apocalypse.
Okay. So while vacationing at their cabin, a young girl and her parents are disturbed when an armed chicken clucks aggressively outside to be let into the cabin.
An armed chicken.
Yeah.
Cluck. Is it
Not
cluck?
cluck. If you were doing an onomatopoeia of the thing rather than using the word cluck, that's the noise they make. But what would a chicken actually say if they're at the cabin?
Wait, what?
If you were just writing out the sound that it made rather than describing it as a cluck, because chickens don't say cluck cluck. That is how
No,
you
of course they
describe the
don't.
noise they make.
A peck. No, my brain's turned to
What,
mush,
if
Andy.
you're doing an impression of a chicken, what would you say?
Uh,
Yeah, that's right. It's at the cabin.
buck,
Bock
buck at the cabin.
at the
Jesus
cabin.
Christ.
That's that.
I thought,
Those chickens are outside.
I thought I was clearly missing something, but I'll be honest, Andy, wasn't as easy as all that.
Yeah, no, tricky. The others aren't so
Is that it?
difficult.
Is that
No,
it?
no, I've
Right,
got
okay.
more. Do you want one?
I've got some as well. So
Go on.
do you want to do a little round robin?
Yeah, that's it. You go.
Mine are a little bit less conventional, I think. I've not just replaced it. Replaced it? I just said replaced it, Andy. I told you my brain's gone to mush. So, while vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand, and Dave Bautista demands that he grab one of their genitals in order to avert the apocalypse. And as he grabs one of their genitals, one of them says, "Oi, that's my."
Okay, it's going to be cock at the cabin.
Yeah. No. If he's reaching out and touching,
cock at the grabbing.
cock that you're grabbing, I've done.
Cock
But
that you're grabbing. All right, we got it.
I've just I've just decided to veto in some of these. Okay.
All right, so cock that you're grabbing. Next, I have for you a young girl and her parents decide for a city break, actually, and they marvel at the local sights of watching some knife crime while they eat some cocoa-based snacks.
Flipping hell. Say it again.
So a young girl and her family decide for a city break rather than rural Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
marvel as they watch some knife crime go on in the streets while they enjoy some cocoa-based snacks, which they speak of informally.
Cocoa-based snacks.
Yeah, cocoa-based treats.
Rice Krispie squares. Rice Krispie cakes.
I mean,
Cocoa
it could be
Pops.
any sort. You could be drinking it.
Chalk.
You could be eating it. Yeah,
I've got it. Chalk at the stabbing.
Chalk at the stabbing. That's what they enjoy.
I like it.
I'd want some chalk at the stabbing. Yes, please.
I'd love a bit of chalk at the stabbing. Nice. I'm sorry. While vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers, one of which is Dave Bautista. But luckily, one of his rivals. Well, I don't even know if they actually really had a feud in the WWE. One of his rivals turns up, and he's swinging at him to get him away. He's swinging at
him. Rock. Is this one where you vetoed the app there?
Yeah.
Rock jabbing.
Rock jabbing, yeah. It's Rock and he's jabbing.
Rock and he's jabbing. There he is.
Yeah. Nice.
Now you've used the Rock. I've got one more for you then. A girl and her parents go away to a fairly uneventful, actually, lovely break in rural Pennsylvania, and the little girl, making fun of her two dads and their slightly outdated grasp of youth culture, makes fun of them mercilessly for their slightly out of date youth gestures that they use, youth emotes that they use, because it's become cliched and overdone.
Mock.
Yeah.
At the
She goes, "Cool, Dad. Everyone's flossing now. Not that old thing." What
Not
are they
that old
doing?
thing.
What are they doing that she's making fun of them for still doing all this time?
Mock
The
at
trends moved
mock,
on.
mock at the dancing.
Not dancing. They're doing like a quick Usain
Dabbing.
Bolt. Yeah, mock at the
Dabbing.
dabbing.
Mock at the dabbing. Oh, fantastic.
You got any more?
Fantastic. I got one more.
Go on.
So while vacation, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by a man. Who even they're taken hostage, but he's quite nice, really, because he says he wants to take them to all around the lake to capture loads of little invertebrates. Are they invertebrates? Loads of I told you my brain's just gone. I can't even think about words. To capture loads of crustaceans. That's what I was thinking of. To
Okay.
capture loads of crustaceans whilst wearing a lovely coat-like garment that he's bought for them.
Smock for going out crabbing.
Yeah, that's it. Smock to go crabbing. That's it.
Very good.
Invertebrates, I said. I'm losing it. I'm losing it.
I'm not sure if crabs are in invertebrates, crustaceans. I mean, they probably have a
Crustaceans,
spine.
yeah. I said crustaceans. I didn't mean to say
Yeah.
invertebrates. That was me being silly.
Don't know that it's not true. Need to learn about my crab biology, I guess.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it for me. Have you got another one?
No. I thought about doing something quickly with sock, but I've got nothing to change for cabin.
Ah, okay. So I guess all we got to do now is rate the film then.
Yeah. What you got for this
Rate
one?
to film. I think on reflection, I think I prefer it to the book. I think it does, but then again, maybe just the film captured these human stories a lot better than the book. You know, the way the book was kind of written made me feel a bit disconnected from it. I felt more connected to it. I think I preferred this to Old, and probably
Picture
Glass
makes you
as
get
well,
old.
and to Beach that Makes You Get Old, and probably Glass as well, because I think those two films I struggled with, and I thought this one's got more of an identity. I know it's not an original script; it's based on someone, of course. Really good performances all round, but yeah, I just still part of me feels a little bit like I'm watching from afar, like I can't quite get it in terms of a concept. It doesn't feel like the most fleshed out concept or realized concept, and that loses me a bit, especially as the film starts to wrap up. I'm a bit like, okay, I get it, but it's just not making me feel anything. Okay, so
You
for
like
that,
Lucy the
I think
Jedi.
exactly. So C plus is probably as far as I'm willing to take it. I think. Hopefully that's fair.
That's fair, I think. I might go slightly. I go slightly higher. Again, I was impressed by the performances. Um, yeah, great performances. I think there's an interesting message here. I did feel for it. I think it was because of the strength of performances. There was a bit of sadness there, actually,
Oh yeah,
especially in the polarized world we live in today, Ben,
yeah.
where you do increasingly feel like you're out for yourself and the people that you love in a world that, by and large, apart from the people you already know, they didn't care about you, you didn't care about them. I think there's a hopelessness that invades our consciousness in the world these days.
Yeah,
And I think that
definitely.
it is, and it does present itself, a really difficult hypothetical choice where if you had to sacrifice or be sacrificed for the benefit of, yes, the people you love, but by and large, a lot of people that you didn't know or care about in the same way, it's an interesting thought about how people would approach that now. So I enjoyed it. It's given me a little bit to think about. I think with is true as a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's films is that you cannot replicate that first watch experience ever again in most of them. So it was a good first watch. Will I watch it again anytime soon? Maybe regularly at all? Probably not, unless it's with someone who hasn't seen it before. Karen couldn't make it; she was working. So would I watch it again
Okay.
with her or with someone else? Yes, probably,
Yeah.
but maybe not ever again on my own. I'm going to
Mm.
go as far as a B minus on this one, ever so slightly higher,
Okay.
on the strength of those
Yeah.
performances.
Nice.
Good
Can't
movie. I
argue that.
recommend you watch it at least once. And you
Yeah,
know
I think.
what? PG-13. So stick it on. Ain't gonna
Yeah.
worry about having nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. Which is nice sometimes, isn't it? I think. Yeah. When you said, "Is this a horror?" I didn't even realize it was a PG-13 until, or so was it
Then
12A?
again, so was Megan. So
Is it a 15 then in the UK?
I don't know. I'll have to have a look.
All right, don't worry. Yeah. So there we go. That is Knock at Cabin. So where would you rate this in your M Night Shyamalan movies? Is it up there with your favorites or just sort of middling? I suppose
Um,
middling, isn't it?
yeah, it's in the middle zone. I mean, I'm not. It's been so many years since I've seen it. Would I rate it that dissimilarly from things that I think stand up very well, like its Sixth Sense? Good movie. I couldn't watch it that many times again because I've seen it. Um, and I'm not sure what the dating on that is. I've been back and watched them. I think for me, big M Night films that I really love, hard to top The Signs and Unbreakable. But
Yeah.
and then, contrary to your beliefs, I really like The Visit. Probably watched The Visit more times than I've watched any of his others. Maybe just
Oh wow.
beaten
Okay.
out by The Signs. But I think this is good. I would call this as a good movie. More power to him. Keep banging out those movies, M Night.
Oh yeah, definitely. Keep it going, M Night. We love it. Um, there we go then. That is Knock at the Cabin. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to our patrons, including John Crinnan, Ben Scaife, Stephen Christopher, Laura Kendrick, Toby Miller, Lane Spencer, Ollie Child, Leslie Carlo, Julia Bilgren, Nick Spill, Troy Bursch, Pazuzu, and Rosalind Harnias. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review. Head over to the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All of those places you'll find us. Just search Horror Hangout Podcast. Next week, we're doing Tremors with a special guest, right? Isn't that correct,
We
Andy?
are. Here we are indeed. Looking forward to Tremors. So we've done some February experimental horror in Skinamarink. We're doing Knock at the Cabin. Is it a horror? Is it an emotional thriller? Now, lovely classic creature feature. Get in.
Very classic. And who have we got joining us?
Stuart Mulrain, so host of the And Why Not podcast, where they look at popular movies movies just because they like to talk about them. Stu gets on a host of guests week on week. I've joined him before to talk about one of my favorite comedy movies, A Town Called Panic. And I really like one of the things that they do is they cover every week. He pulls a little list of the things that are available, classic movies or movies that he'd recommend that are on free to air channels. So just, a movie that you could just check out without having any subscription services whatsoever.
Amazing.
Really, really
Sounds
cool
great.
approach. And he loves a good movie chat. He's a good old guy. He's managed days gone by. He used to manage some of the comic conventions we used to attend. So good to have him on to join us.
Wow, nice. Perfect. Looking forward to it. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for being a right horror dude as well, Andy, of course. As
Thanks
always.
to you for being a right horror dude, Ben, and indeed all those other right horror dudes, which I do use in a gender neutral sense out there today and every week. Bye for now, everybody.
See you later. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.